gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Right Fit Podcast. I'm Jerel Jacobs, your host. Join me every Friday at noon Eastern Time with decision makers in collegiate athletics and professional sports. But joining me today is the Director of Athletics at the University of Virgin Islands, Mr. Dr. Jerel Drew.
Glad to be here with you today.
Well, thank you for joining me, taking the time. I'm kind of jealous you there in the Virgin Islands enjoying that beautiful weather that you have there. But thank you for taking the time to tell me and discuss with me all things that's happening at the University of Virgin Islands Athletics. But before we get to the Q&A, tell people about your journey into collegiate athletics.
Well, for me, my journey started out like I think most of us who got into intercollegiate athletics. Started out as a student athlete, really pushed myself, excelled amongst my peers, and really showed that I had a unique interest after my senior year of making this a career. So, having those conversations with my coaches, play football, my athletic director, and also my institution's president at the time, those were really some key stakeholders that really, saw something in me. I think at the time I really didn't see it myself as far as progression to where I am now, but they really looked at me and thought, I had a future in this. So just came into the field, working diligently, doing everything that I could. I really started out with recruitment, being a liaison with admissions, and from there the transition from coaching to administration to compliance just kept leading to door after door after door. Working and doing a little development, a little fundraising here and there, getting my feet wet and just a multitude of things. So I had great mentors that trusted me. Great leaders as well that I served under in the capacity of other athletic directors and presidents. And I just really took the opportunity to learn from them. And from there, everything just opened up for me. And, I'm able to sit in the big chair like I am today.
Well, a lot of people don't know about the University of Virgin Islands. They don't know it's a HBCU and it's an NAIA Division I. And I know somewhere down the line, you guys might be talking about transitioning to an NCAA Division II. But talk about the history of the University of Virgin Islands Athletics.
Well, the history of the institution, we are an HBC. We're actually the only HBCU in the Caribbean. And a lot of people get confused also because when they think of the Virgin Islands, they forget that we're actually a U.S. territory as well. So, for us, our institution started, we just had our 60th anniversary. So, 1962, formation of the institution started. And from there, you really started the student body, the student union groups advocating for sports to administration. So they really started out as club. During those times, there wasn't really much affiliation with some of our state-based institutions or HBCUs, but in transition over years, you really started to see a lot of competition with other West Indies-based, Caribbean-based institutions, those in the Puerto Rico as well. So when everything started to formate, we really started to see, and looking back into history, you started to see the transition of like the LAI, which is a phenomenal conference that serves the West Indies, throughout the Caribbean, schools in Puerto Rico, Jamaica, all throughout. And UVI had a strong presence in that league for many years. So looking at the past championships, accolades that they've had as far as in baseball, basketball, especially track and field, a lot of things, they were able to do a lot of great things. And recently, about 2016, they made a transition to NAIA. So, very young, if we would look at as far as the transition of coming into the NAIA, or looking at far as NCAA affiliate, what we would know as fans competitions, but they've had a strong history of athletics. They've had several athletes that I would say that have played here that are may not be well recognized for some of their accolades, but locally and throughout the region, they were tremendous players, tremendous athletes. So we have a great, I would say a really strong athletic lineage, athletic history here, and it's something that as we continue to break ground and get out there more, people are finding out more about this hidden gem that's in the Caribbean, and also just more about our athletic programs.
Well, it's really not a hidden gem to the Division One schools who always have tournaments. If and this is a coaches show, so they're probably familiar with the Virgin Island Division One basketball classics that's held there at the beginning of every year. Unfortunately, during the past couple of years, COVID has really stymied that tradition there. And you're going to talk about some things that you're doing there as well, there on the island. But talk about, why did you choose to pursue the AD position there when it became available?
So for me, I served in multiple capacities as far as an assistant associate athletic director in the past. And when this opportunity actually opened up, I looked at it as something, that I could build. I knew they were going through the transition of, NAI. There was a lot of things that when I had a conversation with some peers through NACTA, and then going through the interview process, and talking with the president and other administrators, provosts. The one thing that they told me, they said it was a open campus. They had their expectations of what they would like to see, but they said, Drew, it's an open campus, and you have the ability to paint the picture and apply your vision to it. And I think, coming as an athletic director, you don't have that opportunity so often to just come into a place and really build a program from the ground up. Programs there, but putting it in the direction that I think gives us the ability to grow further. So for me, that was everything for me. That was an opportunity to get here, build. You got amazing weather, that helps as well.
I know
But
that's right.
it was really the opportunity just to build a program and put your mark on something. And once I had that ability, and actually, I came in, it was the height of COVID in 2020, and coming on island for the first time, being in the facility and walking around, and they're telling you, hey, this is your sports and fitness center, this is your facility. Understanding the history, from everything from Paradise Jam, playing here, from FIBA tournaments, from any, Olympics, everything you can think of has been in this facility, and it's amazing. And also looking at both of our campuses. I AD of two campuses, so I have a campus on St. Thomas, and I have a campus on the Great Island of St. Croix. So understanding just the uniqueness of the situation, but also taking it in perspective where you could build something and continue to help foster the growth of the university. For me, that was that gained my interest, and that's what sold me.
Well, let's talk about culture a little bit. As you know, as an experienced administrator, everywhere you've been, there was a culture. Talk about the type of culture you're building there at UVI.
Well, I think the culture here was one thing I'll say. Coming into this university, there's a strong culture here, as far as with locally, with the Native Virgin Islanders, and there's a culture within this institution. There's great pride in this institution. There's great athletic pride, lineage here as well. So coming in, you saw a student body. I would even say an athletic department that had a strong mindset on persevering and fighting. We've been through, as far as the hurricanes that came in 2017, then being hit by the pandemic. I really saw an attitude with our student athletes, just, they grind, you know, and for that really was gave me the ability to implement, my mindset and my vision of, hey, we're going to be a championship culture. We are going to fight in everything that we do. And coming into that, and bringing that philosophy, understanding, gaining feedback a little bit more from our alums, and just getting a mindset of what they would like to see. Supports there, mindsets there. So really, with that, we were able to just continue to lay the I believe the groundwork for what we have today, building a successful athletic department with a mindset of a championship culture. it's really embedded within our athletes. It's really embedded within our administration, even our fans, our student body. So, it's supported. That's the biggest thing. We're going to support our. You can see from not only a local perspective, but even with our student body, we're diehard. We're going to support our athletic programs, and there's an emphasis where our student athletes are willing to work and do whatever they have to do to prove, to prove that they deserve to be in this arena, deserve to be amongst their peers and they can compete. So that's really when you're looking at far as the culture of just our athletic department, the culture of just the university. You see just a true spirit, and I think it just needed having administration or having someone in the vision to support that and lead that charge.
And your president was a terrific basketball player. I don't know if you know that.
I
And
do. He reminds me, Hall of
yeah,
Famer.
he was in college, and I believe it was Kansas State or Kansas. Which one was it?
He was Kansas State,
Right.
and Hall of Famer. Went over, actually played overseas for quite some time. I believe Italy. So having that mindset and having that support as well, where I can tell everybody, I work for a president who gets it from the perspective of a student athlete, but also understands the mindset of what it takes to have that championship, that culture, but also those championship athletic programs. So the support's there. And I can't thank him enough, because that's really someone that I lean on when I was able to share my vision, and we started implementing things that I think moved us to where we are now.
Well, he definitely understands the how athletics can be the front porch of the university as far as branding, as well. It's good to have that support there as well. Let's talk about filling position, particularly your men's basketball coaching position. I think that's one of the first positions you have to fill. And of course, this being a basketball platform called The Right Fit, let's talk about the process you implemented in terms of filling that position, and talk a little bit about your coach that you brought on board.
So for me, when we initially started the process of just looking, when I took the job, it was a position that was open. And I know with that, we had to make sure that we successfully, hit a home run, not only for just our program, but just really for the fan base, the student athletes as well. Having someone who had that experience, who understood, what college basketball is, but more importantly, taking that approach from an HBCU perspective, I think is always key. Understanding the culture of that. So, when we going in, having a national search, finding candidates that administration also felt that was going to be a right fit, but also a candidate that understood, the significant growth in the division, the vision of what I was trying to do, and kind of leading from there. So I was able to get Coach Alfonso Duncan. It's been a great asset to the department, great asset to the overall basketball program, and methods of what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go. So we were able to get someone who has that background of Division One, but also having background of also CIAA as well. And understanding that culture, understanding that mindset as well. It made a great dividend as far as our abilities with recruiting, and great dividend with our abilities to, really bolster the basketball program to a new height. Really, a new in my mindset, just a new competitive edge. So, really excited for everything that accomplished this year. And we were young. As I tell people, I said, recruiting a team and coming off of COVID, and trying to get kids situated. It was a difficult task, but he did an outstanding job with that and continues to do it. Also throw in our women's basketball coach as well, Coach Lanika Collins, that we brought in, former coach of Southern New Orleans, came in, did an amazing job as well. From strategic point coming in and working very closely with our women's program. I think, we in our conference, we had one of the best records for, unfortunately, with, dealing with the pandemic, one of the best records in school history as far as the women's basketball program. So, when you have an individual like that coming in, and, you have two coaches who can come and, contribute and share that vision of building a championship program and putting everybody on notice, not only in your conference, but throughout the NAIA, I think you're making good strides. So for me, both of them, going through that process, finding the right fits, finding the people who have, a mindset and an understanding of, number one, academic success, and, that ties in with our athletic success. That's key. That's key to me, and I think that gives you the ability to transition to the court and have a championship culture and championship basketball program.
Share some of the do's and don'ts, um, your experience as far as interviewing. One of the things we want to make sure the message we want to get out regarding the show being called The Right Fit, we want to talk about those do's and don'ts when interview. Everybody has different theories, and then there's some common denominators there when interviewing as well. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think, especially with me going through and just reviewing as an administrator and looking at, when you make those hires or just even going in those reviews, I think some major do's for me is I always look for confidence in an interview, as far as any individual that I speak with, a level of confidence. And I always say there's a confidence and there's an arrogance. I like the confidence of understanding that you belong, for this position. You apply for a reason. So a level of confidence is very important to me because that gives me a perspective of, your leadership style as far as how you're going to lead your program. I think also doing your research is key. I think really one of the big things that can be a pet peeve, especially as far as administrators, people just applying for jobs, and they don't really understand, the full ins and outs of the job, really not doing your research, so one of my first questions that I always ask a candidate is, so why Virgin Islands? And, they will give me 4 or 5 different answers. Well, the weather, well, that's great. They'll talk about, well, the history of the program. Well, go in a little more detail, and they never can. And that really tells me that, as far as your research is concerned, maybe you just skimped or read Wikipedia, but you really didn't get into the details of understanding what the program is. So, I would always say for me, understanding the program, really research and understand our academic programs. That's key to me as well. Understanding and, being able to say, hey, 42 degree majors, undergrad, you guys got a great graduate program, a very, high yielding nursing program. Understanding some of those is a concept that's going to be key for me. Another thing is your game plan. If you're looking at that person in perspective of a coach, what are you bringing into the table? What are some of the objectives that you have? What are some of the previous objectives that you have done academically? What's your philosophy on that? Academic success. What's your philosophy on student retention, discipline? A lot of those things. So those are some of the do's that I like to see. Some of the don'ts. I really always try to, kind of address young, as far as young coaches, but just individuals who are trying to get in, intercollegiate athletics. Make sure before you're coming in an interview that you are prepared. That's the biggest thing. When I say prepared, I also am reiterating, being on time. I've had, individuals who interview starts at 10 and they're logged in at 10:05. I understand the apologies, technology, things happen, but, making that effort to be there on time. The other thing is, again, for me, a major don't is you're addressing administrators for an interview. How do you speak? Yes, sir. No, sir. Addressing the interview panel. I think you just have to make sure that we're careful in responding, how you respond, not being scared to respond, but showing a level of respect it will get you a long way. So, really for me, and then, reviewing of your experience overall, making sure that you are not going just elaborating over stuff, be strategic in what you're going to discuss. That's going to be key. When you're going all over talking about this, it really doesn't help transition. Stick to the prompts of the question. That's always important. So that's really, what I look for, and, what I would kind of give some advice, but also just an overview of my experience of conducting interviews, being in an interview as well. I would say it's no one can always, can get it right 24/7. But I think there's a level of professionalism that you have to bring to it, and being prepared for it as well to sell yourself. Remember, you're always selling yourself, selling your vision, selling yourself, your abilities. So, make sure you're prepared to present that.
Well, Dr. Drew, we got to take a commercial break. Really enjoying this conversation, particularly when you talk about what you're looking for in a men's basketball coach. I know you were at Elizabeth City State, so you got to see firsthand one of the best in the
Yes.
business, in Sean Walker, who I know personally very well, and the confidence that he exudes, and he knows he's belonged, whether it's D1 or D2, is very contagious. So I knew when you were going after Coach Duncan, he exhibited that as well. But let's take a commercial break so we can pay some bills. You're watching and listening to The Right Fit.
The Right Fit podcast is brought to you by Rising Coaches Search and Consulting. Tired of spending what seems like all of your time and budget filling coaching vacancies? Let Rising Coaches Search and Consulting handle your next coaching search. Our process is simple. We identify, vet, and recruit a talented and diverse group of professionals that fits your institution's profile, all for a low price that we guarantee will beat our competitions. Plus, all of your searches will be handled by former coaches, meaning we will get the best possible insight on all of your candidates, and you'll get the perspective that only a former coach could provide. For testimonials, a full client list, or more information, please visit risingcoaches.com.
Welcome back to The Right Fit. I'm your host, Daryl Jacobs, and I'm privileged today to have the Director of Athletics at the University of Virgin Islands, Dr. Jerel Drew, and we're talking about all things University of Virgin Islands as well as The Right Fit. Let's talk about some industry trends that you're seeing now that maybe some of these coaches and administrators need to be abreast of from your perspective.
Well, I think really some of the major industry trends, and this is kind of goes back and forth, but I always tell coaches, one of the biggest things is understanding this transfer portal. Really understanding the dynamics of it, but also, as I always say, making sure what you bring from that transfer portal is the right fit for your program and also for your athletic.
I love that word, right fit. Love it.
You got to make, I always tell coaches that, generally you're bringing in students, and those students are going to be a reflection of what you're trying to present, not only to, your fans, but your student body, the faculty, just, they represent, our alumni, all. So you want to make sure you have a right fit. And for me, that's, essential, making sure and having that understanding. So, understanding transfer portal is key. Also understanding it to put you in a situation where, you're going to be able to get some kids that, are going to change change potential outcome and just the overall culture of your program. That's key as well. So understanding that, making sure that what we're bringing in, I think the biggest problem is, I support it full-heartedly, but I also say, making sure that when we bring those students in, they're going to graduate. We're not bringing someone in for a year and then they're out and then they're going somewhere else. We want to make sure that when we bring those individuals in, they're here to stay. I always joke around, if they come here, why would they leave? You get to go to school on a tropical island, but, getting that mindset also is making sure that, we keep them here from that. I think one big thing that, we really looked at, and I just continue to always encourage our coaches, is really also understanding this NIL process. NAI, we're a little different than most people as far as our establishment, our setup when it compares to our NCAA peers, but really understanding how that can benefit, and also having those conversations with our student athletes about what is appropriate as far as, having that opportunities to get those solicit funds. There's a lot of sponsors out there, but also looking at where you are as far as industry, what's going to be successful for you and, be the right fit for you as well. And representation, our industry here, if you've been in the Caribbean, been in the Virgin Islands, we have a lot of, distilleries, manufacturers here. So, it's nothing to, to get here and discuss and say, well, are you going to have a student represented by a rum company? But does that, uphold or reflect positively your your department's culture, your institution's culture, your athletics, is that the right representation that you want for your students? So I think, being hands-on with that, there are a lot of organizations that have come up now, or companies that are, helping students in that process. We're working with right now with some workshops with some of those companies to, further facilitate some opportunities for our students. Based off who we are locally, trying to do a little emphasis, we can work with some cruise lines. So, I would say really those are some of the trends when I look at, NIL, transfer portal. And I think probably my biggest is going to be mental health. Really understanding the opportunities of what we can provide, having the opportunities to discuss this further with some panels, but also, taking the conversation that we have with those panels, discuss with my administration, making sure that we're providing adequate support for our student athletes, letting them also know, it's one of the biggest issues that we have, I think, especially in the HBCU culture, especially dealing with some of our young men and women, is having that ability to talk about some of the issues that they're going through, and feeling as if there's anyone to understand them. So, a large emphasis for me, in making sure that our students realize that they have that opportunity and availability for someone to, to be available for counseling services. I think that's key. Really, it's really important that they can get the help that they need at an earlier opportunity, and that they feel supported. And lastly, I would probably say just, really making sure that as an institutions as a whole, and this is a global trend, just not only with athletics, but, making sure that DEI is discussed, making sure that your policies also are reflecting, support for diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's key. Adequate representation for our student athletes and in our departments is key, and making sure that in those conversations is reflected in your policies, your procedure manuals, your student athlete handbooks. So, really when I kind of put, things that I would say my top 5, top 4, those are what I really look at. And I say is, those are some growing trends, that, I think is on everybody's mind. But I think, we constantly, as things keep evolving, those are the few that I think we constantly have to be abreast on.
I think the mental health piece is so important. Even if you just recently, Dr. Drew, the unfortunate uh, death of the cheerleader at Southern University, um, you know, just seeing the signs, having that mental health counselor there, having somebody to talk to. There's so much pressure on the students today, not just student athletes, but students in general across the board on any college campus as well. But that mental health piece is so important. And we've seen it rear its ugly head, unfortunately, uh, for Southern University. It hit home. And my condolences definitely go out to the university and the athletic department as well. Talk about some of those job opportunities you may see on the horizon from your perspective in collegiate athletics.
Far as, I really look at far as an open door, perspective, especially when I'm looking at far as our student athletes. Um, I really start to see that there's going to be some opportunities and advancements with the esports industry. I think that's one that's constantly growing. I came to Virgin Islands. I was one of, we were going through COVID, and I had a student body that just wanted something to do. And a great colleague, friend, now Rod Chappelle, who does an amazing job, with the Esports League, the HBCU League. We were able to bring that into our athletic department, but our institution, and just the opportunities that brought, as far as the level of interest, was amazing. Now we're starting to see and trying to get our students to, to see the importance. Not only are they're playing video games already, the 2Ks, the Maddens, they're on the sticks 24/7, but also understanding that, these are 6-figure plus jobs coming out of college, undergraduate degree, so, and us having a very big STEM related, being very STEM related institution, I think it's even more influential in providing those ample opportunities for especially students from HBCUs, African Americans. I think it's important for us to get in that industry. expanded even more. When I believe the recent studies, we contributed 60% of the profits margin for the industry as it is. We're paying it. We're investors in it, but we're not the individuals collecting, getting in those funds in this $1 billion industry. So I really would say, it needs to be a large. I think there needs to be a little bit more of an emphasis in that. I see it growing. The internships are there. You got EA Sports, I believe, right there in Florida, as well. So, it's tremendous level of opportunities in the esports field. And I also think, there's a large emphasis and a need, as well as a growing trend that we are all seeing in athletic training. And that field continues to grow and expand. And I can tell you from perspective that, I've been on calls with ADs and they're saying, we can't keep them. It's a hard position to find. So I see, with some of the recent trends with NATA, there needs to be a very significant increase in constant compensation for that role, given the magnitude of what those
But
individuals.
henceforth, why they can't keep them?
That's the biggest thing. They can't keep them, and they're going to they're going even to the private sector, going working at for doctors, or or even fortunately some are even going to the level of public education as far as high schools.
Mm-hmm.
So when I really review and just looking, we really need to get into that, a large emphasis that I think encompass and moving more forward with sports information as well. Just having a footprint in that field, I think is also key. So, I think those are the three that I really look at and say, I'd love to see more minority-based candidates and larger interests in as well.
Let's talk about differentiators. I always love that word in terms of candidates. I often get that question. What can I do to stand out or differentiate myself from other candidates during the interview process? Any thoughts you want to share on that?
Well, I'll go back to, always preparation is key. Knowing the ins and outs of the job that you are applying for in an interview is key. And, I think one of the things that for me is always big is elaborate on your experience. I think we are conditioned so much to keep our experience in that job in that 3-page minimum that they tell us is the correct format for a resume these days. 3 pages or less. When you can go back and say that from all my experiences that I've worked for 2 different universities, I'm more than just the 10 bullet points that
Right.
that I did at these institutions. So elaborate. I think that's your one opportunity to really discuss, and I really look forward for that opportunity to discuss. Hey, this is something that I set up. I had a candidate one time, athletic trainer, who's actually now he's at Hampton University when I initially came to Elizabeth City State, and just hearing, he just, discussed the things, it's insurance, he did all the medical claims, things that were not in his resume, but he discussed experience, working with medical companies, trying to get cheaper rates for medical supplies, creating and establishing partnerships with team doctors, things that, we would look at as every day, but we wouldn't put in our, technically put in our document, our resume. He was able to elaborate on those experiences, what was important to him, and also his vision. So, I really look forward to seeing that. I think it pushes you ahead. I also say, just that level of, you can have that level of confidence, but when you're adding that level of confidence and that background, that content, to that interview, you're able to share that experience, but also giving examples that, often when you give some of those examples, you'll be surprised of how many times during the interview phase, issues that particular institution is dealing with in that field that they've had previously. You came into that scenario and discussed how you've already got experience in it and you've tackled that issue and you were very successful. And that's a check mark. Sometimes, I always say that, I have that experience where I'm looking at others or we're in a Zoom chat and, the comment in the private chat is yes, yes, yes. This is exactly what we've been talking about. This is exactly what we need. So, I think it just makes you stand out. more. It presents you being a well-rounded candidate. And I think in the overall, it makes the institution or whatever hiring committee that you're going through, it gives them a level of confidence and reassurance in you as a candidate.
Well, this is the best question I think of my whole show every week. The word association. I say a place, person, thing, or a phrase, and you say the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
And don't forget, this is going out nationally, so make sure you be careful with your answers. I always preface that as well, but I like to have fun with it. Boston, Georgia.
Home.
Brevard College.
I would say love. Much love.
HBCUs.
Made me the individual and the administrator I am today.
And finally, University of Virgin Islands.
A growing force.
Dr. Drew, thank you for taking the time this afternoon to join me here on The Right Fit. And I want to thank the listeners and viewers for tuning in as well. Join me next Friday with another terrific guest from either collegiate athletics or the world of professional sports. Until then, please stay healthy, stay safe, and have a terrific weekend.